Hello and welcome to another episode of Street Smarts. I am Spyros,
And I am Manolis.
and today we're going to talk about two very interesting topics: how street photographers view street photography and how the rest of the world views street photography. And by explaining these things, we're going to touch upon image rights, we're going to touch upon ethics, we're going to touch upon laws and
About personal attitudes
in street
in
photography.
street photography.
Yeah, so shall we dive in?
Let's go.
Let's go. So we're going to start our conversation today by I wouldn't do that if I were you. We're going to start our conversation today by discussing how us as street photographers view street photography and how we view the subjects that we photograph. Okay? So I would like us to first touch upon the ethics, the ethical boundaries that exist. In each street photographer, they are different, of course, but there are some general ethical boundaries, I believe, that exist that cross cultures, cross borders, which I think will be very interesting if we discuss about.
Except the ethical rules in street photography, we should also consider the cultural norms and the cultural attitude that people have to being photographed, and also the laws in each country.
Yes, of course. There are various image rights depending on countries, and most people in the street, in public, have a misconception of those image rights. Everyone thinks that it's forbidden to be photographed in public, which is not true. It depends on, of course, where this is happening, which country, which continent, and it also depends on the way the photographer is taking the photograph.
So it's
Yeah.
good to also talk about the techniques and the skills that each photographer has to have in order to take pictures in places that still photography may be prohibited, or
Yeah, like hip shots, you mean, and
yeah, like hip shots, like hanging the camera from your neck, or like having the camera
Under your
under
armpit.
your arm,
Yeah, yeah.
things like that.
Okay, okay.
And also what the photographer should publish according to the country that he's in.
Yes, yes. These
Because
are
there
all
are-
very interesting.
Yeah. My personal boundaries as a street photographer is like the most general rule is not bring in a uncomfortable situation the person that you are photographing.
Okay.
For example, I'm against photographing homeless people or drunk people face up, like portraits of them, them being the main subject. I'm against that, but I am for photographing them in an artistic way, like photographing parts of their body maybe, or like if they're homeless or poor people, signs, only signs, not portraits, or them being not the main subject in the picture, in the composition.
Now we're talking on a street photography level, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this conversation, I just want to make clear to our viewers, is only about street photography, because in documentary photography you can photograph anything and anyone you like because you have a project and you have a goal.
Bresson has an amazing picture of a guy that he has photographed being drunk, and there is like some like water, like a river. Maybe he was vomiting or something, and it looks like it's blood coming from his head.
Ah, yeah, I
I
remember
don't.
that photo.
You remember that photo? Some really big photographers have taken pictures of homeless people and drunk people, but in an artistic way.
Yes, it's an artistic way, and you can't really tell in that photo if he's drunk or if something else is happening. Another thing that I think we should touch upon from the street photographer's point of view is how we feel about shooting people in private spaces. So many times I have found myself walking in the street and looking into a window and seeing a very interesting scene.
Me too, man.
Ethically, we should not be making photos of people in their private space, especially if it's a home, because it's a clear, we're crossing a line. We're completely invading their private space,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be their sanctuary. They're supposed to be in their safe space, and we're peering in with our lens and we're snapping their image. So personally, I do not take photos in those situations, even though I have seen many interesting things. I just memorize them.
I don't take photos of like houses
Mhm.
where people are in their
Their homes, you mean?
homes,
Mhm.
yeah, where people are in their like safe zone.
Yeah.
But I sometimes take pictures of shops, of shop windows, because when there are like reflections and nice lighting and people who
But in those circumstances, you use the people and the reflections as your with your composition, right? It's not like you just
it's
use.
it's not like a documentary shot like what they're doing in there.
Mhm.
But again, this is also
A very sensitive
yeah,
from a street photographer's point of view, at least our point of view as street photographers, we think that those things are very sensitive and they should not be used when doing street photography, but they should be reserved, let's say, for other projects containing a more documentaristic character. So having a higher meaning, a more important meaning, maybe trying to show a message, present a message
the world.
to provoke through an article, through an exhibition, to have a purpose, not just I'm walking in the street and shooting homeless people, invading their privacy, and I'm uploading it to Facebook and I'm saying, look at the lovely photo I made of a poor person who can't do anything about privacy. He has to live in the street and he has to be looked at by everyone walking.
Many photographers take pictures of homeless people because they are surprised of their let's say social level that they are. They think of them like people who are not belong to their social cycle, and they get really surprised. Mostly beginner street photographers.
The social group, you mean?
Yes.
The social group. Yes, so it's they see someone who's outside their reality basically, and they find that subject intriguing, and the only thing they think about is that, and not the actual situation of the person, what that person is actually going through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand, and I agree.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
We talked about personal spaces in shops or in homes.
Mm-hmm.
Photographing cars, the inside of the cars.
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think that a car is not a personal space
Why?
because it's surrounded by windows. I mean, unless the car has black windows and you can't see through it.
Well, there's someone in there.
There's someone in there. Yeah, I don't know. That's a
Important.
very tricky question. That's a very tricky question. But they are in public display. So they are in the street moving around everyone. Just because they're behind a sheet of glass, it doesn't mean that we can't photograph them, does it? I don't know.
I don't
I would
know.
photograph someone.
Personally,
in a
I would
car.
also take the picture
Yeah,
if it's
that was a
good.
very good question. Yeah, I would do that too as well. My ethical boundaries allow me to take photos of people inside cars. Another point that we should have to consider as street photographers, especially in Western civilizations, is photographing underage people, so children, because intentions might be purely artistic and they might be, harmless, but it is a taboo. And I have felt this when being in Western Europe, so I avoid it, so I don't get into trouble. But in my country here in Greece, it is getting. I am starting to feel it here as well. But when I was shooting in the East, in the Middle East, in Turkey, for example, I did not feel this. On the contrary, many parents were ushering their kids towards me, so I would take the kids' photo instead of their photograph, which was kind of refreshing because children, especially when they're playing, they do some things that create really crazy images. And it's a shame that we can't do this now in Western civilization. What do you think? Do you have this boundary as a street photographer?
To be honest, it depends on the country I am and the place. I try to read the scene
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on with the kids. If their parents are close to them, I may not take the picture or I may ask for permission for consent. It depends.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I have photographed many kids, and it's really easy in Asia
Mm-hmm.
to take pictures of kids. I mean, in Japan, as you say, people like show the kids.
Oh, they do the same in Japan.
Yeah, in Japan,
Oh, okay.
In Asia mostly, like they're very open in photography.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you afraid of people suing you when you take photos of them?
No, I'm not afraid. However, I think I should be because I'm a street portraitist. I take lots of portraits, so street portraits, which are candid without permission. So in my photos, people are clearly visible. You can tell who they are. Um, but I think I I'm comfortable with what I'm doing because of where I am shooting. Um, for example, when I was visiting Germany in Hamburg, I was warned by the locals not to do that style of photography. So I was photographing from further back. I was trying to use more silhouettes. I was trying to use reflections, make photographs that the subjects weren't distinguishable. But here in Greece and in France and in the UK and in Italy,
Really?
yes, in Italy, that was very bold of me because in Italy, we'll talk about this in the second part of the show, but in Italy, I think it's quite strict as well. But I didn't know that. I found out later. So, and in Turkey, I just go close and I take photos. So yeah, as I said before, I'm not afraid, even though maybe I should be afraid to be sued. Maybe I should be more conscious of what I'm doing. Someone once told me, you know who you are, that one day I'm going to be punched in the face. Maybe that will happen. I don't know. But I have some very interesting examples from real life situations from photographers that I'd like to discuss where they actually got into trouble for taking photographs of people in the street. And especially the first example I'm going to talk about Espen Eichhöfer. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly because I don't speak German. Especially in that photographer's example, he got into trouble. He actually ended up in court, and his court case is still open, from what I know. It hasn't. He appealed because he was found guilty for taking the photograph of a person in the street and using that photo in one of his exhibitions. And he was in Germany, and this all happened in Germany. And the German courts ruled against him because the person in the photo sued him. He appealed, but nothing has happened since then. And I was doing some research about this because I wrote an article in Street Hunters about image rights. We can share the link with our viewers. And I found that it's still open. It hasn't been, it's still open. So it's still in appeal, in the phase of appeal. And the other example, you know it better than me. It's about Philip-Lorca diCorcia. Would you like to share the story about what happened
Well,
with him?
I know about this photographer that he was taking portraits of people crossing the street. He had like a really big umbrella
In New York, this was
in New York.
right?
Yeah. He had a really big umbrella put in a balcony just over their heads, and he had like a 300 millimeter lens. He was far away, and he was taking portraits of them, and he didn't.
With a remote flash.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he did an exhibition in New York, and one of the guys that he had photographed sued him. And at the end,
I think he sued him for religious reasons because he was an Orthodox Jew, right?
yes, yes.
And it was something had to do with his. He was insulted. It insulted his religion. I think that's what he claimed in court.
Yes, but it was just a portrait. But he won the case.
I know in the
He won.
US that was legal, and
Exactly.
the person who was the subject of the photo was in the wrong
Yes.
because he was in public.
Yes, the laws in the US are unspecified, and they thought that what he was doing was an art.
So we already saw two examples about people who were photographed and sued the photographers, but were they right to sue the photographers? You have done extensive research on what happens in various countries around the world. So it
Exactly.
all depends on where you're doing the street photography and how you're doing street photography. So this is very interesting. Would you like to
Yes.
tell us more about it?
So I have done two researches. I have researched many countries, around 100 countries.
Wow.
Through experience, through asking friends, through reading articles and comments, and from other photographer stories. According the local laws of each country that are in force in each country, and the cultural behavior of the people there, because the laws and the behavior may be very different. As I said, an example is Japan, where there are some specific laws according to street photography, but people are very happy to be photographed. So, in our first tier, we have the least strict countries. These are countries where public photography is largely permitted without legal or cultural concerns.
Okay.
These countries are mostly English-speaking countries, like the United States and the United Kingdom, and many of the Scandinavian countries. In the second tier, we have moderate restrictions countries. These are countries with privacy laws or cultural sensitivities, but their street photography is generally accepted. One of these countries is Greece.
Okay, cool.
Another one is Japan, Mexico, India, many of the Eastern Asian countries are there, and some of the European countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. In our third tier, we have countries with specific privacy laws. These countries require consent and have limitations on publishing unidentifiable images.
Can you give me an example of one
Yeah.
of those countries?
Like the biggest example is France, where there's this they call it in French droit à l'image,
Okay.
which is the photographed one has 100% rights in the photo. Other countries are Italy, Germany, Hungary.
Oh my God! So I've done flash photography in France and in Italy.
Yeah, but you present them in Greece.
I present them worldwide on the World Wide Web.
So, on our fourth tier, we have culturally or religiously sensitive countries.
Okay.
Countries like mostly Arab countries,
Okay.
Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and countries like that.
In Morocco, I know I've never been, but you've been. You told
Yeah.
me, right? You pay people to take their photos.
Yes, that's a tip. And in Egypt too, I have heard that.
Yeah.
Well, in Morocco,
But that defeats the purpose of street photography. I think these are one of those countries where you have to take your camera and do photos like that behind the armpit, right? Or do sneaky hip shots from looking the other way.
look, most people in Morocco, they are very friendly, but some others, especially in markets, it's the same in Greece. People get offended in
Yeah,
markets,
but
and
people might get offended in Greece, but they can't do anything about it.
yeah. In
Because-
Morocco, if you tip them,
Yeah.
you will be very happy.
Okay. Okay.
And our last tier is the highly strict countries. Countries like Russia, China, Iran, Afghanistan, all these countries. We're talking about the laws that are in force of each country, not the attitude.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
The attitude changes. Now, I don't know about South Korea. I read that in Korea, individuals retain all portrait rights.
I have no idea. I can't.
And
I don't know about South Korea.
I also read that photographing them without their consent is a criminal offense, and it can be you can be put in jail for up to 5 years.
Wow. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know either. I just read that. I have never been to North
Okay,
Korea.
we can research it
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
Now you're going to tell us about countries based on attitude.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
How
So we can see the contradictions between the actual laws and the actual characters of
exactly
the actual cultural acceptance
how
of being photographed.
how receptive
Yeah, that's
countries
right,
are
yeah.
countries are to street photography.
Population.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the most famous country that people are so friendly with street photographers is India. I mean, they even ruin your photos.
Well, they photobomb you.
Yeah, they photobomb you, or like they smile, they do gestures, things like
Okay,
that.
nice.
People there are very friendly. Also, in most of the Asian countries, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore. I have been to Malaysia, I have been to Singapore. They are very friendly. I mean, I was photographing them while they were eating. It's crazy. They weren't saying anything. After that, I can say we have the United States and Mexico. They are kind of friendly. They are used to street photographers, mostly in New York, in big cities.
London.
UK, yeah, London.
London.
Yeah, or Paris, France. Countries like Germany, Middle Europe, and Greece. I can say they have the same attitude towards photography. And at the end, we have the Arab countries and the African countries. I will not analyze Africa anymore because it's a very controversial continent.
I think it's controversial, yes,
Yeah.
and it depends on the countries. It depends a lot on the countries and the individual cultural.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can. But first, wait, before we continue.
So saying that,
Yeah.
let's now analyze the ways to be invisible in street photography.
Okay,
Do you have any techniques that you?
I do have the classic techniques that most people use, which is the hip shot, which is the I'm looking the other way shot, or the I'm a tourist shot. You know, when you're like, oh, what's that?
Oh, I do the same.
Yeah.
And it's good to wear light color clothes because they will think that you're a tourist.
Or
If-
just wear, you know, a hat, a fancy hat that says "I love Greece," for example, "I love Italy," and a T-shirt and something. You're going, yeah,
yeah.
that's the best thing. Or hip shots,
course.
as I said before, when you're just being very sneaky and doing like that.
And now with the new cameras that have really good eye sensors, it's really easy. You just turn on the eye sensor and you just like that, and you capture him wherever you want, or you use zone focus
Yeah,
if you are more professional.
and a trick you taught me, which is, I'm on the phone photograph.
Yeah. Hey mom. Hey,
Hey,
what's
mom,
up?
how?
Nah, that's
Yeah, I know the results are crazy, but it's very interesting how how many different techniques you can use to make photos without being noticed. And also, one of the techniques I really like is reflective photography, shooting through mirrors. You can shoot through mirrors and you can make actual really nice compositions, and you can shoot people up close as well, but because you're shooting through a mirror, they don't realize you're taking their photograph. And you know what other thing I've discovered? When I'm shooting with a wide lens, I go really close to someone's face, like here, and I make a photo. They can't understand
Yes.
I'm
They think you're
photographing
photographing
them
something behind
behind them.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yes.
I usually do the same thing. Like I'm taking picture of people, and then when they look at me, I'm like trying to take pictures behind them, and I was like, I'm sorry, and they sometimes they say, oh, I'm sorry, and they
Yes,
move away,
yes.
but I have already taken the picture.
And you know what the trick is? Never, ever make eye contact. because if you do that, you write, I am guilty. I just took your photograph right on your forehead. It says it. Yes. So just, yeah, so I guess this wraps it up for today, right?
Yeah.
So let us know what you think, dear viewers, and also tell us, in your countries, do you know the laws? Do you know if you're allowed to take street photos, if you're allowed to publish street photos? Do you know those things? Please share in the comments. And also tell us, what are your ethical boundaries, your ethical restrictions when you're doing street photography? Do you have the same restrictions as us? Do you have other restrictions? Do you have no restrictions? We would love to hear your opinions.
And see you in the next episode.
Yeah, see you in the next episode. So guys, stay sharp and keep shooting.
See you in the streets.